I was never supposed to be the one they looked to when the sky turned black and blood stained the ground. I was just the medic, a background presence, a walking bandage kit. But in war, titles mean nothing when death is breathing down your neck. Like, subscribe, share, and comment if this story moved you. That day in Somalia didn't just rewrite the rules. It rewrote me. The steel door to SEAL Team 7's briefing room groaned like a wounded animal as I pushed it open. The hallway behind me echoed with the distant percussion of live gunfire, a haunting lullaby of men who knew nothing but battle. The stench hit me first: gun oil, sweat, and scorched coffee. Then the weight, the kind that doesn't come from physical force, but from the dense fog of unspoken judgment. 12 men lounged around a scarred table like lions in a den. Combat boots tossed carelessly on chairs, arms folded across chests hardened by war. Their eyes followed me like crosshairs, not curious but calculating. I stepped forward anyway, willing my spine to stay straight, my expression unreadable. Inside, my heart pounded a furious rhythm against my ribs. I had performed emergency surgery under mortar fire in Helmand. I had clamped a ruptured artery with nothing but gauze and a belt during a firefight in Kandahar. But this was different. This wasn't chaos. This was coordinated resistance. "Gentlemen," came the gravelly voice of Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison from the head of the table, a man whose scars told stories more vividly than any war record. "Meet Dr. Sarah Chun. She's your new medical officer." The silence that followed wasn't silence. It was insult wrapped in a pause, a challenge disguised as stillness. Then the voice of Rick Torres cut through, deep, sarcastic, dismissive. "Great," he muttered, not even glancing up from the knife he was sharpening. "Now we're babysitting." The laughter that followed was dry and sharp. No one stood. No one offered a seat. I approached the podium, pulled out my laptop, and opened the slides. My hand didn't shake. It wanted to, but it didn't. "Good morning," I said, my voice slicing through the fog. "Today we'll be covering the medical realities of Operation Desert Mercy." Satellite images of the compound in Somalia flickered onto the screen. The mission was dangerous, a hostage recovery with too many unknowns. I outlined everything from potential diseases to trauma conditions, malnutrition, shock, sepsis, gunshot wounds, shrapnel, psychological breakdowns. When shooting starts, interrupted Mike Stevens, a sniper with ice chip eyes. "This ain't a medical conference, Doc. It's war." More chuckles, more eye rolls. One crumpled paper ball hit the floor beside me. "Oops," said Torres. "Thought that was the trash can." I paused. Morrison watched me carefully. This was the test. If I snapped, I'd be labeled emotional. If I stayed silent, I'd be dismissed. So, I chose door number 3. "Petty Officer Torres," I said calmly, "when was the last time you performed emergency surgery on a teammate bleeding out on the floor?" The room stilled. He looked up, one brow arched. "Excuse me? A simple question. When did you last save a life with your hands instead of your weapon?" He didn't answer. I clicked to the next slide, a close-up of a gunshot wound, tissue mangled, blood saturating fatigues. This is what a 7.62 round does at close range. 4 minutes until irreversible brain damage. You want to gamble with that? Torres stood abruptly. "I need coffee." The door slammed behind him, and for a moment, just a moment, the room belonged to me. Nevada's desert didn't forgive weakness, and neither did the men I was training beside. The heat clung to you like a wet sheet of iron. Dust snuck into every crevice, every seam of your uniform, every breath you took. My body ached in places I hadn't known could ache. The 48-hour simulation had begun at dawn with zero mercy, and now as the sun mocked us from directly overhead, I was kneeling in the dirt beside a combat dummy with a plastic chest cavity ripped open by fake shrapnel. Sweat streamed down my face and back, making my blouse stick to me like second skin. "Collapsed lung," I called out. My voice was dry but carried. "Sucking chest wound. Air's compressing the lung. If we don't act, the heart's next." The team formed a semicircle, rifles slung across backs, arms heavy with muscle and attitude. Their camouflage paint was smeared from exhaustion, but their smirks were clear enough. I held up the needle. This is a 14-gauge, 3-inch decompression needle. It goes here. I pointed to the chest, mid-clavicular, between the second and third ribs. Sounds like overkill, Torres grunted from behind. Why not just staple the hole and call it a day? Laughter, again. I didn't flinch. Because if you miss by an inch, you puncture the heart and kill the patient yourself. Jesus, Doc, he drawled, sauntering forward. You're making this sound like rocket science. We've been patching each other up since you were in braces. You're welcome to try it, I offered. He gave me a cocky grin. Don't tempt me. Go ahead, I said, stepping aside. You're the patient now, chest wound. You've got 2 minutes before brain death. Clock starts now. His smirk faltered for a second. Then, puffing out his chest like the caricature of a drill sergeant, he knelt beside the dummy and grabbed the med kit I tossed to him. His large hands fumbled with the sterile pack, grabbing the wrong needle. Then another. He hovered over the dummy's chest, uncertain. Here? He asked. Too low, I said. You just punctured the liver. Morrison said nothing, but his eyes were locked on Torres. The silence was louder than a gunshot. Even the desert breeze seemed to hush, as if the heat itself was listening. Try again, I said. Torres grit his teeth. Sweat dripped into his eyes. He jabbed the needle in. Wrong again. You hit the heart this time. He slammed the kit down. Screw this. I looked at every man there. You think training like this is a joke? Let me be clear. When one of you is bleeding out in a godforsaken war zone, it won't be muscle or bravado that saves your life. It'll be this. And if you don't trust me to do my job, then at least learn enough so you don't die before I get to you. I stood up, brushed sand off my knees, and walked off. No one followed. No one spoke. But I knew I'd pierced something, not with a needle, but with truth. The Black Hawk thundered low across the Somali coast, chopping through the humid air like a blade through flesh. Below us, the world was a patchwork of rusted tin rooftops and twisting alleys, scorched by years of conflict. Somewhere down there, 2 American aid workers were praying someone still remembered they existed, that someone was us. I clutched my med pack like a lifeline as the bird dipped, the roar of the rotors deafening. Morrison's voice crackled over the comms. 2 minutes. The team double-checked gear, loaded mags, clicked optics. No one spoke. Across the cabin, Torres met my eyes. Just for a heartbeat. There was no smirk this time. Just something unreadable. Maybe fear. Maybe regret. Maybe both. We hit the ground like a hammer. Dust exploded around us. Guns up. Formation tight. The alleyways swallowed us in shadows. I stayed close to Morrison, eyes scanning every corner, every rooftop. My brain cataloged every infection risk, every tetanus threat. But what made my skin crawl wasn't bacteria, it was the silence. No dogs, no voices, not even wind. I don't like this, Walsh muttered. Overwatch? Status? Morrison asked. Nothing, came Stephen's voice. No movement. This feels off. Then the world exploded. The IED ripped through the concrete with the scream of a demon. The blast threw me backward into a crumbling wall. My vision whited out. My ears rang like church bells in hell. When I blinked the dust away, the world was chaos. Bodies down, shouts, gunfire, blood. Torres wasn't moving. Time stopped. I scrambled, crawling through debris with my med pack banging against my spine. My hands moved before my brain caught up. Ripped vest, cut fabric, blood, too much of it, pulse from his side, femoral artery. Medic! Someone screamed. I'm here! I yelled back, but my voice was swallowed by bullets pinging off concrete. Torres's eyes fluttered open, glazed, shocky. Doc, don't talk, I barked, already pressing gauze to the wound. Blood gushed between my fingers. Pressure's wrong, he gasped. In Fallujah. Shut up and stay with me. I've seen this before. Elevate. Let me work. He tried to argue again, tried to help. His body shaking, voice slurring, bleeding out. Doc, Let her finish! Morrison's voice thundered from behind. It was like God himself had spoken, and silence fell. Even under fire, something shifted. I worked, tourniquet in place, bleeding slowed, gauze, agent. I lost track of the world, of bullets, of time. There was only blood, pulse, precision. Extraction inbound, Morrison said behind me. We're getting him out. When I looked up, the team wasn't watching with skepticism anymore. They were watching with trust. Torres coughed weakly. Doc, you're not dying on me, Torres. Not today. He tried to smirk, failed. But his eyes, they were clear now. As they lifted him onto the stretcher, I felt the shift settle into place. I was no longer just the medic. I was theirs. 3 weeks passed, enough time for stitches to dissolve and bruises to fade, but not enough to forget the blood on my hands or the weight of what happened that day. Torres had survived, barely. The surgeons at Landstuhl called it a miracle. I called it muscle memory and grit. They stitched him up and pieced him back together like a shattered plate, but the crack down the middle remained visible, especially to him. I saw him for the first time since Somalia when he walked into the medical bay with a limp and a silence that didn't belong to him. The swagger was gone, the armor of sarcasm stripped clean. Got a minute, Doc? I nodded and gestured to the chair across from my desk. Torres sat slowly, like the weight wasn't just in his muscles, but in something deeper. Guilt, maybe, or shame. I was a real asshole, he said. I raised an eyebrow. Understatement of the year. He chuckled nervously. Not just in Somalia, since day one. You almost died, I said, my tone even, because you wouldn't let me do my job. He didn't argue. I've been thinking about it a lot, he said, staring at his scarred hands. How I sat there, bleeding out, trying to tell you how to fix me. Like I knew better. Like you weren't trained for that moment. Like you hadn't already saved people while I was still playing squad leader in training drills. I watched his posture shrink, bit by bit, until all that remained was the man beneath the armor. And the worst part, he continued, it wasn't just my life I risked. It was yours, the whole team's, the mission. Silence stretched between us like the quiet just before a mortar lands. What changed? I asked finally. He looked up, eyes lined with something I hadn't seen before. Reverence. You did, he said simply. You didn't panic, not even when the bullets were flying and my blood was everywhere. You were calm, faster than anyone I've ever seen, precise, like you'd done it 1,000 times. I realized in that moment that I was the one who didn't belong, not you. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to forgive him outright. Another part wanted him to carry the lesson. You learned something the hard way, I said. Don't waste it. He nodded, then stood to leave. But before he reached the door, he turned. You saved my life, Doc. I'll never forget that. Next time, I said softly, just let me work. A week later, it happened again. I wasn't even in the room this time. A young Navy corpsman was giving a briefing to a mixed group of Marines and SEALs, barely 20, nervous, trying to explain triage protocols. A gunnery sergeant interrupted him again and again, mocking, undermining, humiliating him. I stood outside the doorway, watching. Then Morrison walked in. Gunny, he said in that voice that could stop time. Everyone froze. Let him finish. The words echoed across the walls like gunfire, and they obeyed. That was the moment I realized it wasn't just about me anymore. It wasn't just about what I'd proven in Somalia. It was about what had changed because of it. Let her finish had become a phrase, a standard, a checkpoint, a call for respect in a place where respect had to be earned in blood. It spread, first in whispers, then in briefings, then in doctrine. I saw a female EOD tech shut down a cocky Delta operator with nothing but a raised eyebrow and those same 3 words from her team leader. I saw a 22-year-old Air Force medic complete a critical demonstration while senior Marines watched in silence, because no one dared cut him off anymore. And every time I felt it ripple outward. Change, slow and stubborn, but real. They started calling it the Somalia Standard. But I knew the truth. It started the moment Morrison chose to say it, and the moment I earned it. 6 months after Somalia, my name was no longer followed by raised eyebrows or snide remarks. I was requested, by name, for missions. Operators I'd never met nodded at me in passing. The same grizzled warriors who once rolled their eyes now waited patiently for my briefings. That was the real miracle. Change doesn't march in with banners. It slips through the cracks, in silent moments where someone makes a different choice. Like the moment in Syria, it was a multi-branch joint operation. Rangers, SEALs. Air Force PJ. When I walked into the room, the air didn't stiffen. No one scoffed. Every man and woman stood, not because I was a woman, because I was the trauma surgeon who saved a man under fire and changed the way they all thought about competence. Midway through the briefing, a young pararescueman started explaining a complex casualty extraction protocol. He stuttered. His hands shook. Someone started to interrupt. The team leader, an Army Ranger with 2 decades of scars, didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. "Let him finish," he said quietly, and the room went still. After the briefing, the PJ approached me, nervous, grateful. "Ma'am, I heard about Somalia, about the phrase, thank you." I didn't know what to say. It wasn't just about me. It was about every woman, every underdog, every ignored voice finally being heard. A year later, I was promoted to lieutenant commander. My new office had polished floors and a commendation wall framed in mahogany, letters from field hospitals, notes from combat medics I'd trained. But there was only one piece that truly mattered, a torn scrap of notebook paper pinned beside my desk. Scrawled in the unmistakable handwriting of Rick Torres. "Doc, thanks for not letting me die of stupidity. The phrase is bigger than all of us now, but it started with you having the guts to do your job when we were too dumb to let you. Rick." Underneath, Morrison had added in blue ink, "The moment that silenced the SEAL team became the voice that changed everything." Well done, Sarah. Some battles are fought with guns, others with grit, but the ones that leave lasting change, those are won with courage and 3 simple words. If this story stirred something inside you, if it made you think, reflect, or simply feel, then don't let it end here. Like this video to show your support. Subscribe for more powerful, true-to-life stories from the edge. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment below. What does courage mean to you?